Hi, so I'm back. The weaknesses identified from the notational analysis was that the distance she covered in the game was much lower than the group average. She covered 657 metres lower than what the group average was. So this is seen as a weakness because it shows she might have tired and therefore was unable to run as much in the game. And this can be improved by training her cardiovascular fitness so she doesn't tire as quickly. A second weakness was that she had a 0% success rate with her 2-point shots. This is a weakness in her performance because it shows her accuracy in shooting wasn't very good, which could lead to the ball being turned over and her missing a goal scoring opportunity for her team. A third weakness identified was her layups. This was seen in her success rate being 27.8. This would be a weakness in her performance because she is missing she's regularly missing the shot, which could result in the other team gaining possession and then having a go at goal themselves. A final weakness was that she was unable to obtain any offensive rebounds. This means that she wasn't effective in jumping up to receive the ball when it rebounded off the board from another player's shot. This is a weakness because, again, it gives the other team the opportunity to gain possession of the ball and denies a possible run in play for her team. The strengths identified in the technical analysis in the analysis model was that in the preparation phase, she was marking an angle. This is good because it shows she was making an attempt to try and mark the ball whilst marking her player. A second strength is that she had lowered her body angle and stuck her bum out, which is a good thing because it means that her balance was maintained. The strength in her execution phase was that the athlete remained in a lower body position. This is a strength because it shows that her balance was maintained. She also managed to keep the attacker away from the ball, which was a strength because it gave her more time and space to recover from catching the ball. She also fully extended her arms, which, if done at the top of the jump, would have given her extra height when jumping to catch the ball. The strength seen in the recovery phase was that she pulled the ball down to her waist, which was a strength in the performance because it shows she was making an effort to protect it from being stolen. Another strength in this phase was that she had a load of room between her and the now attacker, which gave her so much more time and prevented her from having to maintain contact with them. And the athlete also made a fake pass, which was a strength because it made the now defender move that way with their wall mark, which opened up the space for her. And it's quite clear that the pass she gave was strong, which is a strength because it meant it was hard and fast, and therefore the defender wasn't able to get a tick or interception. The weaknesses identified in the preparation phase of the skill was that the athlete was not looking at the ball as well as her player, even though her body was angled that way, which is a weakness because she wasn't able to see where the ball was. Another disadvantage in this phase was that she didn't maintain enough contact with the attacker and therefore gave them the opportunity to run through them. In the execution phase, a disadvantage was that she had her feet too far apart, which was a weakness because it gave the attacker the opportunity to get past her. It was also evident that she didn't jump high enough when pushing off to catch the rebound. This is a weakness because she's quite small as it is, and any other taller player would have been able to get the ball before her. A third weakness in this phase would have been that she didn't fully extend her arms at the top of the jump. This is a weakness because it took away potential height from the jump, which may have been needed. She only fully extended her arms when her feet were on the floor after jumping. In the execution phase, one weakness was that she pulled the ball to her waist too slowly, which would have been bad because it gave the opportunity for another player to make a steal. A second weakness identified in this phase was that the contact was not maintained with the attacker. This could have been bad because it gives the attacker the opportunity to run round and put a wall mark over the ball. And a final weakness identified was that the player gave the ball away too slowly. This could have caused a potential issue because it gave the now defending team time to set their defence and mark the pass. The strengths identified from the numerical data in the 20-metre sprint was that the athlete was really consistent over 3 sprints. This is seen from the low standard deviation from the values. This is a strength because it shows the athlete can work at that speed at a number of times. Having the last 5 metres as the fastest 5 metres is a strength because it shows the athlete still has energy after the first 15 metres that reflects the cardiovascular fitness. It is also a strength because it shows they are accelerating throughout the sprint and not slowing down. The weaknesses identified in the 20-metre sprint was that there was a high standard deviation for the first 10 metres. This was 0.14, and this is a weakness because it shows that it takes the athlete a different amount of time every sprint to cover the first 10 metres. It was also identified that on average the athlete slows down as she reaches 11 metres. This is bad because as they are approaching the middle of the sprint, she's de-accelerating, which could be the difference between her losing a player and getting in front of them. In the force plate data, the strength identified was that it took her 1.09 seconds to cover the 5 metres. This is quite quick considering the ecological validity of having to run inside a small room. A second strength identified was the angle at the knee as she struck the ground. This is a good angle because it shows she wasn't striking the floor at an overextended angle, which would have caused an impact-related injury. The weakness that is identified in the force plate data include the braking force being very inconsistent. This is identified by the high standard deviation. It would be a weakness because it shows that she has a different braking force each time she did the run, meaning that her foot brakes them at her at different force each time, which leads to inconsistency. Like she could do one sprint really fast but then one really slowly. A second weakness identified was that the propulsive force also had a high standard deviation, showing the inconsistency when she was pushing off of her foot. This would lead to her being inconsistent in sprinting again. Another weakness identified was that there was a large braking force, which is a weakness because the large force is slowing her down and is not ideal, but then her propulsive force is really low as well, which means that there's not much force pushing her off each stride. Because her braking force is so high and the propulsive force is so low, it means she's losing so much speed potential. So the main 3 weaknesses I've decided to focus on for my development plans are shooting accuracy for the 2-point shots. This is because it's one of the most used shots in the game, and therefore it will need to be developed in order for the player to maximise her shooting opportunities and minimise the amount of turnovers the opposition can get from turning the ball over a rebound. The second weakness is for power. This is going to be focused in her upper and lower legs. I've chosen this for quite a few reasons. Firstly, adaptations in this area will allow her to jump higher, which will target one of the weaknesses I mentioned in the box out. Secondly, because building power in the legs builds muscular strength as well. This is just because power actually is strength times speed. It will improve the contact aspect of her box out, which was a weakness that I mentioned earlier. And thirdly, in improving the power in the legs, the athlete will also be able to generate more power in her sprint, which will help her to run faster. And the final weakness I've chosen also helps the sprint, and it's just to develop the propulsive force she has in her foot. And I've chosen to do this because if she has a greater propulsive force, then she'll be much quicker pushing off the floor. And it needs to be developed so it's larger than the braking force, which means she'll be accelerating more. So the first development plan, I've made a target of improving her 2-point shot percentage to 10%. This would be from 0. So the target is specific because it focuses directly on the 2-point shot and no other types of shot. The target is measurable because I'll complete game analysis on the player before and after the development plan has been carried out, and I'll take stats on her 2-point shots, which will allow me to calculate the success rate percentage. The target is agreed upon because she has agreed with me to follow the development plan for 3 days of the week for 6 weeks, as she wants to improve on that aspect as well. The target's realistic because instead of developing the shooting percentage to match the group average, I've made it to increase it to 10%. The group average was 24%, somewhere around there, which means it's just more realistic to her as an individual. And the target is time bound because the athlete is required to follow a development plan for 6 weeks, and that will be when I reevaluate her. The sessions I designed to do is continuous shots. She has to do 100 a day, and this will be all using the same technique that's used in a 2-point shot. And I'll use a key, like where they shoot for in basketball, and scatter loads of cones around, and each shot must be from a different cone. Then in between each shot, she's going to do 3 burpees to simulate the tiring feeling that she's going to get from playing in the game. If the athlete misses a goal, then it doesn't count towards the 100 and she has to repeat it. The session must be done 3 times a week for 6 weeks, and the intensity will remain high, and which is because that's the intensity she'd be using in a game of basketball, and the burpees will help stimulate this, and her heart rate should be between 70 and 80% of her maximum heart rate. As I said, what should be working in a game of basketball. And the program is time bound because it will last for 6 weeks, by which the test will be ran to see whether she's met the target. And the type of training being used is continuous because she will not have any intervals or be resting or change her pace at all. The second development plan I've made for power focuses on a target to increase her score in the standing broad jump test. So this target is specific to the athlete because it works to improve her power in the calves, quadriceps, glutes and hamstrings, which all allow for force to be generated in the lower legs. This focuses on improving her power aspects in the 20-meter sprint and the box out, and will also lead to muscular strength improving, which will aid the elements, obviously the contact elements in the box out. The target is measurable because I'll be using the standing broad jump test before and after the development plan has been done. All the athlete needs to do is just improve her score from the latter. The target is agreed upon because she's agreed to follow the plan as well as the other ones for 3 days a week for 6 weeks. The target's realistic in terms of the athlete only needing to improve her score by 5 centimetres. This is a realistic amount to increase it by after 6 weeks. The target is time bound because, of course, she has 6 weeks, which is the duration of the development plan, which I'd like her to achieve that 5 centimetres from. The session I've designed to help the athlete meet her target is a circuit. It includes deadlifts, working on hamstrings, box jumps for the quadriceps, sumo squats for the glutes, and calf raises for the calf. The athlete will need to complete 20 reps of each exercise for 2 sets. She must complete the circuit 3 times a week, and the intensity is in the anaerobic threshold, and therefore the athlete will need to be working at 70 to 80% of her maximum heart rate. This will be maintained by adding an additional set after 3 weeks of training if her standing broad jump test result hasn't improved since the starting result, since the one she got this before she did the plan. The session will continue for 6 weeks and will end with a final standing broad jump test, which is why the session is time bound. I'm just going to leave it here and put it on the last bit on the next one.